for the dogs to settle down, in case you're wondering. Okay, I think we've done it. Nope, up she goes. Good gravy. I feel that it's a little crooked. Hello and welcome to The Knitted Bean. My name is Echo and I will be your host today. The Knitted Bean is a knitty, nerdy, and sometimes sweary podcast with a side order of fandom or other media at the end. And I'm a little out of breath today. So today I have gone back to my Dirty Birds mug. This is from a Friends of the Library store in Oregon and I love it. There's a little tit inside that says tit. It is not a boob, it is a bird, which is what makes it funny. It's a good pun. And I just love it. It's got, you know, rough-faced shags on it and red-billed oxpeckers. Come on, it's fun. In it, I have some blackcurrant puka tea, which I got in a package that I'll talk about later. And it's good, you guys. I like it a lot. Both dogs are on the bed. They are chilling. Perhaps they'll actually behave for the entire podcast. Do you think it could possibly happen? Legs is feeling a little under the weather, so it might. I want to say thank you for the wonderful response that I had to my knitting plans video. I was on the fence about making it because I asked if people were interested and I only received one response. But I decided to make it anyway because that is the kind of video that I truly love to watch. I love to watch people's sweater compilation videos, what I knit in whatever year, or what I'm planning on making. It just gives me a chance to be exposed to a multitude of patterns in a short period of time, and potentially, if it's like a sweater video, maybe even see how they look on different bodies. And for me, that's really exciting and gives me ideas and gets my creative juices flowing. So I decided that I would record it anyway, and I have been blown over by the response to it. I really appreciate all the people who stopped by, watched it. If you're new from seeing it, welcome. If you're a returning viewer who is just excited to see it, thank you for watching. So it is a lovely day today here in Montana. It is mid to upper 60s outside, or that's high teens if you're in the Celsius. It's sunny and cloudy, off and on, back and forth today. It's not too hot. Spring has officially sprung, you guys. We got our first hail the other day. I can't remember if I talked about that in the last video or not, but we did get our first hail, and we get a lot of hail in the spring in Montana, a lot of thunderstorms and a lot of severe thunderstorms. And so that's like your indicator that spring is here. When you're getting thunderstorms and you're getting hail, you know you have arrived. Also, it's past Mother's Day, which is our typical planting day. So it's here. I'm excited. We probably won't get any more snow now. Probably. It's not a guarantee. There's definitely been years where it's like snowed in June, but probably won't happen. So I have, you know, like an itty bitty basil plant that's growing outside, and my dill is coming back up. It comes up from seed every year. My grape is getting some leaves on it, and even my tree has gotten a couple of buds, which is really nice. I am so excited to have spring here, to not have to worry about the snow for a little while longer. I am not as excited as the dogs are though, you guys. They are like, open the door, let us go in and out all the time. I feel bad for my husband because when he's home, he likes to keep the door closed. He has a bit of a phobia of bees. And when I'm home, I just leave the door open and the dogs can go in and out at their own will so that I don't have to play like doorman for them. But when he's home, he closes it and he sits closest to the door, so he has to like constantly open and close the door for them. And we've talked about getting like a doggy door or a screen door with a doggy door in it, but it's just not in our budget. We've been talking about it for years, even before we had budgetary considerations, so mostly we just haven't gotten to it. All right, so if you're looking for me on the internet, you can find me as The Knitted Bean on Ravelry or Instagram and Ko-Fi. I also have an email address, which is knittedbean@gmail.com. And you can even send me a message on Discord, where I am capital B, capital BEAN, hashtag 0199. That's BBean0199. So how have you all been? It's only been a week, but it's been 2 weeks since I recorded a full podcast. Clearly I finished something. I got a little bit obsessed with it. I didn't work on other things that I was thinking I would work on, but we'll get to that. I've been so-so. Big surprise, did not make it a full month without having to go to the doctor. So I had to go to the doctor last week and I was a little bit annoyed. Okay, I was a bit annoyed. I have to go to the doctor again this week. That was my regularly scheduled one. But I didn't make it a full month, and that was pretty frustrating. But I do feel better having gone and done what I needed to do. So other than that though, I feel like I have been pretty good. I have sat out back in my swing chair and I've knitted and I've enjoyed the sunshine, soak up a little bit of spring. My husband's done with school in a week, and I think once he is, then we'll be able to spend a little bit more time even outside. So let's do some admin. As always, I want to mention that we have a discount code for Naughty Knitting Sacks. Katie is one of my favorite bag makers, and surprise, I have another shirt in another one of my favorite bags from her again. So that is Bean15, and I will put that down here. Please go give Katie some loves. She has bags that are naughty and bags that are not naughty. She has face masks. She has all kinds of stuff that pops up in her shop. She doesn't do regular updates. She just posts on Instagram when she puts more stuff in there. So go check her out. It's totally worth it. We also have the InclusionMAL going along, you guys. I've been having so much fun looking at your projects on both Ravelry and on Instagram, and just the variety that I'm seeing and the things that I'm learning, designers that I knew would be oh, they would count because they're size inclusive. And then I'm learning things oh, they're also part Native American, or, just cool stuff like that I didn't know. So I'm super excited to be doing this make along, and I keep saying that, but you guys, it's really true. It's fun for me. It's fun for me to stop and think every time I make a new project, well, this would count and this would count and this is why it would count, and the different things that I am learning, Happy Shape Grumpy Llama had a crochet hook that they bought and was from a company, and I can't think of the company's name, but I'll put it down here. And I didn't know, for instance, it's a company that I've seen a lot of. I didn't know that they employed disabled adults that would require more job training or job assistance than is probably going to be available on the open market. And because I used to manage group homes for adults with developmental disabilities, so I know that this is a thing that there are people out there who are perfectly capable of doing a job, and they just need more focused attention on how to do it, or longer training on how to do it. And I also know that our society is not real prone to being willing to take that extra step, right? And same thing with not even a developmental disability, but with a physical or a mental disability. Maybe you could do that job, but you have a learning disability and it takes you a little bit longer to process the training. These are things that can really hold you back in our society because it's go, 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 and they don't want to take the extra time to do that. So I thought it was really cool that this company makes a point of we provide this extra job training, this extra coaching, this extra job support to allow these people to have a paying job, and that's really cool. So speaking of the InclusionMAL, that is going on right now. It's running through the last day of July, and it is for any kind of craft. Doesn't have to be fibery, but the prizes are fiber related, but it is a make along, so do what you will with it. and it is all about what brings us together despite what makes us unique. So it can be size inclusive, it can be about gender, it can be about sexuality, it can be about being a minority, it can be about disabled or autistic or just whatever. All you need to do in order to participate is either post a picture to Instagram with the hashtag InclusionMAL2022. I had to think about that. Either post to Instagram with the hashtag InclusionMAL2022 if it's a WIP, or InclusionMAL2022 FO if it's your finished object. Or if you'd like to participate on Ravelry, go to the Knitted Bean podcast group, and there are both a chatter thread and an FO thread on there that you can post things in. You don't have to finish. I'm gonna draw prizes from both the chatter and the WIPs and from the FOs, and I just want people to participate, to enjoy having this wonderful knitting community that we have where everybody is welcome, because everybody is welcome in the ways that I have seen, at least. So that's what I want to celebrate. Just tell me how it's inclusive. If you used inclusive tools, if you bought your supplies at a shop that is owned by someone who is a person of color or who is queer, if you are knitting it in colors that support some group that needs supporting, if you're knitting something in the shape of something that is representative of something that's getting support. It could be anything, you guys. If you bought a skein of yarn and it donates to Suicide Awareness Fund or something like that, mention that. It counts. Very lax, very relaxed. It's not about the rules. It's about the mindset, if that makes sense. Everything that I mentioned, I do endeavor to put in the links below. If I ever miss anything, just give me a poke and I will add it. Okay, so I put out there a couple of times, once in a story and once on Instagram, to see if anybody had any questions for me. I only got 2, but I'm gonna answer them anyway. So one from the Charmed Knitter was, I don't do Ravelry and I would appreciate more suggestions on dyers for the InclusionMAL. I want to participate, but I have no idea what to do. So if you are looking for dyers, let me see if I can come up with a few just off the top of my head. Neighborhood Fiber Company is BIPOC, as is Lola Bean, although I know her yarn can be very hard to get your hands on. You could use any yarn from any company that is in the colors of any, like rainbow for queer, or if it's bicolors for the bi-flag, trans, whatever, anything like that. Doesn't matter where it comes from, but if it's in those colors. Farmer's Daughter Fiber is a good dyer who's actually kind of semi-local to me, and she is Blackfoot. She would definitely count. If you're looking for something a little more on the budget side, you could definitely go and find budget yarns in colors that represent something that requires inclusion. So for instance, if you are Native American, you could knit something in your traditional Native American colors. You could knit something in green, which is the color for the ribbon for mental health awareness. Some other people would be Leading Men Fiber Arts. Anything purchased from them would count. Certainly anything in their own colorways. So I'll mash that all together, and then I will try and post some links below to additional dyers that I think would be apt choices. And you're always free to message me and I will give you some suggestions. The other question that I got was, what is your favorite handmade item, knitted or not? And that was really hard. So I would have to say I have 2. I have a non-knitted and a knitted. My non-knitted favorite item is a painting I did of Izzy when she was a little bit younger. So I painted this from a picture when we were at like a Boston Terrier get-together, and it hangs up in our living room next to a drawing my husband did of her. And then I would have to say that my favorite knitted item that I did is going to be my Charcy, which you've all seen before. Oh. A whole lot of mosaic. Basically an entire sweater in, what is that? Mosaic broken rib? I don't know what you would call it, but slipping every other stitch, baby. But I love it, and I wear it a lot in the winter. Let's talk about my one and only FO. This is my Rocket Tee by Tanis Lavely. And I will stand up, but I will also insert some better footage farther down. So I did keep the little eyelet rose underneath. I know that's something a lot of people skip, and I can see why. It's got the eyelet rose on the raglan. I didn't hold mohair double or anything. This is single mohair. It's not particularly see-through. It's got the I-cord bind off here and on the hem. I did mohair on the sleeves and the cotton linen nettle on the hem and the neckline. I thought that the mohair might be itchy on my neck, and I figured I'd match top and bottom, but the sleeves, it ended on a mohair stripe, so I did them in the mohair. So, if you've been around very long, you know I'm not the biggest fan of mohair. I find it a little itchy. Not like, oh my god, I can't touch it itchy, but like I can put it on, but then after half an hour I'll find that I'm like, you know, so I was a little twitchy about doing this in mohair, but I got it on sale. I got both of these yarns on sale when a yarn shop was closing. This whole tee cost me, I want to say like less than $20. It was very cheap. So the mohair that I got, I went ahead and decided I would try it because it's this French mohair. I can't pronounce the name. The main core of it isn't silk like most of them. It's wool, and I think it holds the fuzzy better. Like it doesn't tend to pull off, and that seems to help a little bit with the itch. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think with the pearls on the inside, the mohair tends to lay a little flatter on the inside. So the outside feels very furry to me. But the inside doesn't feel as furry, and I find that I can wear it fine and it's not itchy. Would I love it more if it wasn't mohair? Probably. But I don't not love it because it is mohair. So that's where I stand on it. So it's a mohair, a wool mohair, and a cotton linen nettle, which was the Pasquale Nepal. And I had 3 balls of each, which worked out to be 590 or 580 yards of each. And I think that the pattern called for, I did the 55-inch chest. The pattern called for like 500 and, I don't remember. It was very close though. But I find, you know, they have that 10% extra typically figured into the patterns, and so I figured I would be safe. This is how much mohair I had left. This is like 16 grams or something like that. And I don't remember where my leftover Nepal went, but I had like 8 grams of that left over. So I did both of the upper and lower, the long bind offs in the Nepal. So definitely, like, that was the perfect amount to buy. Like, you're gonna have a little bit left over, but there's no way I could have squeaked it out of 2 balls. So speaking of the size, I did the 55 inch, and I am a 53 inch, I was gonna mix up my numbers there, a 53 inch bust. I heard from a lot of people that the mohair stretches a lot. I didn't use a super wash for the other stripe, and I've never knit in like a cotton linen, so I wasn't sure how much that would stretch, but I didn't want to end up wearing a garbage bag. And I know that that was kind of a complaint that a lot of people had, was like they knit it and then they blocked it and wore it, and it just ended up being so baggy that they didn't enjoy it. And so it suggested 6 inches of ease, and I know from my V-back tee that 3 inches of ease was nice and flowy on me, and I really enjoyed it. So I knit 3 inches of ease, and it did block quite a lot. So, but not like too much. So, I mean, you got that much. Is it a little more than 3 inches of ease? Yeah, it is. It's probably like 5 inches down. Definitely it's like 5 inches at my waist. But right up here, right at my bust, it's definitely only like 3. So I'm happy with it. As I spill my tea on it. So this is by Tanis Lavely. She has, I don't know if it's still going on, but she was doing a summer tea knit along where you could do the rocket tee or the floodlight tee, and the floodlight tee is one that I'm interested in making. It's a similar vibe, but it's a scoop neck. So this is me wearing my rocket tee by Tanis Lavely. You can see that it is not really see-through. You can't really see the eyelets on the side. It is quite a bit lower in the back than in the front. And I've probably got a good 5-6 inches of ease at my waist. The arms fit really well. I have about a 17.5 inch upper arm. And like I said, it's a lot lower in the back, so I don't have to worry about, you know, my butt showing if I bend over. But in the front, because I have a big chest, I have a lot less wiggle room. Even when I pull my pants all the way up, and these are not high-waisted jeans, I still only have a little bit, and if I raise my arms, you can see. So big pros of this, you guys, is it weighs almost nothing. The whole shirt weighs a little over 100 grams. And it's like wearing nothing, walking around wearing nothing, but whatever you're wearing under it, a bra or whatever. It's not see-through, despite the fact that you can totally see through it when you look like through the fabric. I don't find that it's see-through even in the sun. And I did leave the eyelets in, okay? So I wanted to talk about the eyelets. I did leave the eyelets in, and I did that because first I was like, oh, I don't know if I want my fat roll showing on the side. And then I thought, you know, I don't think it'll show that much, and I think it will add ventilation. I was right on the ventilation. When you go outside, you can feel the air moving through the tee, and that helps a lot with staying cool, and I really like it. And nobody can like notice or see. I mean, you saw. It's not like you're like, oh my god, fat rolls, right? Now that said, I think I could have finished this tee like 2 days faster if I hadn't put the eyelets in, because every other row you gotta do something different, and it just requires more thinking than if you were just going round and round and round and changing colors every X number of rows. So there's that. There's a speed factor. Then there is the factor of doing that little bit of lace in mohair. Not a fan. And then there's also the factor of the way the eyelets are made on the side is slightly different than right here, because this is actually a raglan and this is not. And I'm honestly not a fan of the way that they're made here, because it gives that center ridge is much more defined than it is up here, and I don't like that. I think if I were gonna do it again, I would do them similar to the way they're done up here, and I would put a decrease on either side of it instead. So in order to keep my stitch count right. So meh, just thoughts. But I think I will definitely make it again, and I think it will probably be with Suri alpaca, so it's not so itchy. And it'll be warmer. I won't put the eyelets in, and for me it will be more of a like fall, early spring tee. But I love it, you guys. I'm sure I'll talk about it more in a little cutaway where I do a little twirl for you and you get to see how it looks. I did add 2 stripes to the length because I know that my boobs take up a lot of length and I didn't want it like coming up in the front. So that is my racket tee. You guys should definitely make one. I know it's a really popular pattern and I'm not usually a bandwagon person, but in this case I feel that it's popular because it's a really flattering construction. So I also wanted to point out while I'm talking about this, I always say what my measurements are, and I always tell you what size I knit. And if you have access to Ravelry and you look at my pages, you can see that that's also information that I put in the notes of my projects. Like I will say I have a 53-inch bust, I knit this size, which has, you know, this measurement, which gives me this much ease, positive or negative, blah, blah, blah. The reason that I do that is because as a heavier person, when I go look at patterns on Ravelry, they may be size inclusive, but I've noticed a really distinct drop off at about a 40-inch chest where people stop posting pictures of the garment on themselves. So at a 36 or a 35 or a 38 or even a 40, people will post a picture of themselves wearing the garment and they write, you know, when they're filling in their Ravelry project, they select what size they made. And they may even say in their notes what size chest they have or how much ease they did. However, when you get up above 40, so say 42, 44, definitely by the time you hit 44, 45, people stop posting pictures of the project worn on themselves. A lot of times, they stop even putting in the selection of what size they made. And they definitely stop posting like what their own measurements are. So when I go and I see, just say for instance, because it's a well-known pattern and it's free that everybody knows about, when I go look at the flax, it's got thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have made it, and it goes up to a 5X, and I think, okay, it should be really easy for me to find somebody who's made the 3X size and see what it looks like on them. But it's not, because even though plenty of people have made the 3X size, they haven't labeled it as the 3X size. They don't have a picture of it on themselves. I also don't know what their chest measurement is. Like, are they doing a 3X because they're really broad shouldered, because they're really big chested, because they have wide hips? Like, what went into their choice to make that? And so I can go through 30 pages of the flax pattern and maybe see one person that I am pretty sure has made my size and it has a picture of it on them. So I think it's really, really important to not feel ashamed of posting it on yourself, taking pretty FO pictures of yourself in your garments that you made for yourself despite your size, or not even despite, regardless of your size, and putting that information out there. And I thought maybe I was the only one, but I've been getting comments on Ravelry on the FO pictures that I take where people are like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting your size. Thank you for taking an FO picture of yourself in a garment where you look happy. It helps me so much to know that I want to make that, because now I know what it looks like on somebody who's my size. So if you're out there and you're, you know, above a 40-inch chest, which frankly is not that big, like, we're talking a 40-inch chest, right? So if you're a guy, that is like, I don't know, a medium, maybe a large. And if you're a girl, depending on how big your boobs are, like a 40-inch chest could not be that big of a waist, or maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. It doesn't really matter, because it's not about that. Like, post your pictures. It's fine. People want to see them. Even if you think people don't want to see them, they do. Other people just like you want to know how it will look on them. It's important to them when they're trying to make their decision. So I thought it was a thing, and then I got a lot of comments and I realized it really is a thing. Like, this really is something that is important to people to know, like, what size is this and what size is that person? Is it gonna look like me? You know? So if you're afraid, just post your pictures. It'll be okay, I promise. I feel very disjointed today, and I don't know why. I'm home alone, it's nice weather, the people who are gonna stop by have already stopped by, so who knows? All right, let's move into the whips, you guys. And I do have a few of them. So I think it was the end of the last podcast. I was showing off the yarn from Hannah at Chromatic Yarns, or Corner of a Craft is her overarching business name. And I was like, you really want to just cast some socks on for myself. And I totally forgot them. I brought the bag, but I forgot the sock. Okay, I'm back. So I did. I like literally wound it up before anything, before I even like downloaded the last podcast. So living in my beautiful sister bag, which has a pin from Amsterdam and a pin from a viewer. This glows in the dark. It's so cool, you guys. Is boop. This is a mini, and it is bright and shiny purple, and it is also Chromatic Yarns. That's from the Advent last year. On it, I've got a toe. But I did wind it up, you guys, and it looks gorgeous. This is Naiad. I kept saying Nereid, which is, Nereid is a thing, but it's actually Naiad. So my pronunciation and spelling were a little bit off. Hannah corrected me. I feel bad. But I do have one completed. So these are the garden path, which is part of the Wild Garden set. It's a trio of socks by Carly Perrins. And all three of them are just simple textures that I love. They are knits, pearls, and I think twisted stitches, and nothing else. I could be wrong. It might just be knits and pearls. So I haven't trimmed my ends or blocked or anything. It has a fleagle heel, which I don't think I've done a fleagle heel before. I will say I feel like the fleagle heel is super roomy. This would work really well for my husband, and it might be a little too roomy for me. I follow the instructions exactly instead of subbing my own heel like I normally do. And I think I need to put an extra ½ inch of negative ease into it. in order for a legal heel to work for me. These fit, they'll just be a little extra loose. So the front looks like this. And I just really love it. I've got it memorized. I could just knit it without the pattern in front of me now, with the exception of the heel. And even that, once I got started on it, I looked at the directions for how to do the gusset, I did the gusset, and then I looked at the directions for how to do the heel, and I did the heel. Like, I didn't have to keep going back to the directions, so they were very easy. It has a twisted rib at the top. It called for a taller one. I didn't do a taller one. In their shorties, they started the rib directly after the heel, and instead I opted to do one pattern repeat plain and then a shorter rib. So I like it a lot. I love the color. It's bright, it's shiny, it makes me happy, and I'm gonna finish the other one so that I have some nice tie-dyed looking summer socks to get out there in my, I don't know, I only wear like the one pair of shoes that I have, but they do show off my socks. So yeah, I'm excited about that. It was very fun. It was very fast, easy knit. And then I kind of paused and got hooked into my rocket tee and some other things. And I just need to go back and like finish this toe, because once it's on the 9-inch circular, it'll go really fast because I'll just be able to pick it up and set it down whenever I want. So that's the garden path socks, or the winter garden sock set, and out of it, it's the garden path. So that is my first work in progress. Okay, my second work in progress, you guys, is something that I mentioned in my knitting plans video. You guys gave me so many good ideas on the things where I was like waffling, do I make this or do I make that? And I made some definite decisions. So I am gonna make the blueberry pie sweater. I'm not gonna make the Felix pullover where I would have to like make some alterations to the raglan. I'm just gonna chuck that idea. I'm gonna make the blueberry pie, and I decided that I was gonna make the lapis with my yarn that was really special for my trip, where I needed a pattern that like fit the amounts of yarn I have. And so I actually cast it on. It's in my fucking bunnies bag, which I love even more for this project because it matches, like this light blue Art Deco matches. And then it's like, I haven't showed it in a while, but it's like, you know, we get it on like bunnies inside. So it matches, you guys. And I'm a sucker for a project bag that matches. So I cast it on. It took me forever to wind up this particular, you can tell because it's wound around the outside. This particular ball of Lobby Enemy gave me some shit. It didn't have any knots in the yarn, but the actual skein itself was like, it only had one tie around it instead of two like the other one, and it had gotten like, clearly it had flip-flopped and figure eighted on it. So I had to hand wind a lot of it and then rewind it onto the ball winder and then finish winding and then do some loop-de-loop-de. Oh my god, it took me like 45 minutes to wind the one skein. Oh, I was very frustrated. Okay, so this is the lapis, which is by Yamagara, who is a Singaporean knitwear designer. I am making it in this Lobby Enemy La Grande Nuages, which is a gray with turquoise and purple speckles, which like nearly perfectly matches this Lola Bean. And this is Calming. This is 100% merino, and that is a sock yarn. I think it's a 75-25 or an 80-20, I don't remember. So this is like an upside down, I want to call it a rhomboid, but I'm still not sure. I haven't looked it up to see if that's right. It's like an upside down triangle type tee where it's knit bottom up and it gets wider as it goes up to your shoulders, and then you seam the shoulders and pick up where this yellow crochet cast on is and knit the waist down. So let me show you this lace. It's pretty dang cute, you guys. I think it's pretty dang cute. So I did do a crochet cast on. This is the first time I've ever successfully done a provisional crochet cast on. I've tried it a couple times a couple of years ago. I've said multiple times on this channel, I'm not good at crochet. I can crochet a straight line forever and that's about it. And it won't be very even. So crochet cast on for me is kind of like the devil. But there was a link in the pattern to a really good, and I don't remember who it was by, but it was a really good tutorial on how to do it. And it made sense. So I did it. It's called the one-step provisional crochet cast on. It made sense. I was able to do it. I won't lie, I was not very fast at it. I think it took me, I don't know, half an hour to cast on like maybe 30 stitches, and then I started to get faster at it. I had to cast on 300 and some stitches that way. By the end, the last 100 took me like 20 minutes. So clearly I got into the groove of it eventually, but it's definitely still not my thing. So I did it. I was really like excited that I finally found a tutorial that made some sense for me for that, so I can do that. But I've been working on it. It's so much fun. The lace is really easy to read. It's a simple lace, and it's just full of memories because I got this yarn on my trip to Amsterdam, and it's bright and it's springy, and I'm really excited. My only concern is I'm right in between sizes. So they had a size for 48 to 52 inch bust and 54 to 56 inch bust. And I'm at 53. And the recommended ease was 13 to 18 inches. So I sized down, and that gives me 13.25 inches of ease. If I sized up, that would have given me 19.25 inches of ease. So I feel like that's the right choice because I tend to not want the highest amount of ease recommended in most things. My only concern is that not very many people have made the top yet. And when you look at the pictures for all of them, the waist is fairly loose still, and it's baggy at the top. And I'm not sure if that's just body habitus, that my waist is, my natural waist is 51 inches. So it's only 2 inches shorter, skinnier than my bust right now. And part of that is because, like I said, I'm retaining a lot of water right now. Normally it's more like 46, in which case this would work just fine because the waist on this is 47, 48 inches. But my hips, like where my pants sit, that part, my hip bones, that is 55, which is really ideally where I'd like this to sit. There's a place in the pattern where you can add a little bit of length, and I did plan and do still plan on adding a couple of inches to make this something that I can wear with jeans instead of like the pictures show with a skirt, because I'm not much of a skirt wearer and I don't have dresses. So I'm a little concerned that it's going to look a lot tighter on my hips, and that might stretch that lace in a way that it's not stretched on other people in their pictures. On the other hand, this is super wash, so it's going to stretch to start with when I block it. So I think I'm just going to try and aggressively block the waist and it'll be okay. It's fine if it has like 2 inches of negative ease. It's just if it has like 6 inches of negative ease, that's going to look funny on the lace, I think. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think I'm just going to aggressively block it and it'll be fine. Someone pointed out on a knitting server that I'm on for the Knitting Hobbit that ideally, now having looked at the whole pattern, I maybe could have cast on for the next size up waist, knit up, skipped my last set of increases, and then knit the size down from there up. And that probably would have been like the ideal option, but I don't feel like rounding all this lace. I could. It's not a ton of lace, but I'm not motivated enough to do it when I'm 85% sure that it will block out. So this is another pattern, if you're curious. All of Yamagara's patterns are size inclusive. She is Southeast Asian. She would be considered a minority designer. Definitely would qualify for the InclusionMAL. I'm super stoked about this project. So, next up, living in my fat squirrel bag. I am still working on my Be Creative socks. I have made zero progress, you guys, because all of my other projects are like severely pulling my attention. And I feel bad because I need to be working on them, and they're all wound up in here. What the heck? What is going on? Oh, there we go. So these are my Be Creative socks. I've made no progress, you guys. None at all. I'll like another inch to go before I start the heel. It's not that I don't love them. I do. I want to knit my own socks right now, and these are a gift sock. And my socks are going much faster than these socks because mine are just simple texture and these are color work. So I just need to sit down. Like when I do sit down with them, I tend to get big chunks of them done because the color work is really addictive, but I haven't been very motivated. These are out of Lang Ya wool, which is a 75/25 sock wool. Like it's specifically for socks. It always comes with a little like reinforcement thread for the heel in a matching color. So I just need to get on it. Speaking of this little guy, this little swatch, I frogged. You guys, I decided that I just was not in the right brain space to design my own tank top right now, as much fun as it is, and I really want to do it. And I love the yarn is so great, and it stood up so well. I frogged it 3 times, the cast on and first couple of rows, because I wasn't sure what kind of edging I wanted on it. But I just was not motivated to design my own thing right now. My brain gets foggy and then I make a mistake and then I gotta start all over, and I don't know. I will do it, but I think I will not do it right now. Okay. Last whip. This is living in my cute little citrus bag that my writing partner got for me. And this is another thing that totally counts for the InclusionMAL. Jessie made and a ripple bralette. So this is that Kobasi that I got on sale, and I was gonna pair it for a tank top with something else, but I just could not find the right pattern. and I was not interested in designing my own. And I've kind of been interested in trying a bralette for a while. So I thought, you know, I bet this yarn would make a very comfortable bralette in that it's cotton, but it doesn't stretch out like plain cotton because it's also bamboo, silk, and elastic. So there is elastic in this, and it does have some bling bling to it. So I've just barely cast on. I think I have the cast on and a couple of rows, and I've switched to the smaller needles and a couple of rows. This is twisted rib, and I think I have another 1 2/3 of an inch to go in twisted rib before I get to go to the big rib. So that's kind of a mindless relaxation. I can do twisted rib or 1x1 or 2x2 or 1x2 or pretty much any rib except for whatever one I had to do for the single malt. That one tripped me up. All the other ones I have always been able to successfully do completely mindlessly without looking. Like, rib is very relaxing to me. So I'm excited about this. It's the Ripple Bralette by Jessie Maid, who I learned is Native American and Filipinx. And I had no idea. Like, it's just, there's just a little thing that she has on her designer page, and somebody pointed it out to me because they were knitting a tank for the InclusionMAL. Okay, you guys, that is not it that I have for knitting. I have one more exciting knitting thing. And that is, I mentioned that I was watching out for a test knit for this, the Woolbarrow fingering weight Irish Donegal tweed. This is 100% merino tweed, and it's gorgeous, 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 gorgeous stuff. I have 400 grams. And I did put in for the test knit, and I was chosen. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna pronounce this right. I'm going to try really hard, but I believe that she goes by the handle of Anna Judy Knits. She is a designer who has designed a bunch of socks and other really neat accessories. And this, I believe, is her first garment design. She has a history of garment sewing and things like that, and so I was really interested in it because when she talked about her design process for it before she put the test knit out on her podcast, which I'll link below, she was talking about how she was modifying the raglan to make it fit better than a traditional raglan, and doing that with the way the sigh is cut on a sewing pattern. And so for my size, for the short sleeved version, you needed 400 grams estimate, and I totally put in for it, and I was chosen, and I can't wait to start, you guys. I will put a picture up here. This is for the Padru, which is a raglan pullover with some cute lace detailing in all of the hems. And it's already knit in a tweed originally, so I know it's gonna look good in that respect, and I just can't wait. So I'm excited, you guys. You're gonna be seeing that on the next podcast, I guarantee it. So yes, I get to knit from my big giant cake of wool the size of my head. So that is my last knitting thing as far as I can think. So I am going to go over a few small acquisitions, etc. So if you've liked the video so far, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, subscribe, drop me a comment, let me know what you are knitting on, what you're excited about for a summer top, and if you want to hang around for acquisitions, some reading, and some fan fiction, feel free. Okay, so the biggest acquisition that I got was I did a yarn trade with Liz. Her channel name is Liz Ward Crafts, and she does 2 types of episodes. She does the spin to knit episode, and she does the Yarn Waffle podcast. The spin to knit episodes follow her through the entire journey of preparing a fiber, spinning a fiber, and then knitting a project from that fiber. So from the moment that she picks out the fiber, she has the project in mind. And then the Yarn Waffle podcasts are just her crochet and knit and typical fiber style podcast setup. She's really fun to watch with a nice calming voice, and she has some hilarious Bengal cats. If you've ever been around a Bengal cat, which I have, I had an ex who had one, I don't want to say they're more like a dog than a cat, but they are not your typical cat. They like water, and they are much more inquisitive and confident and just full of piss and vinegar. So yeah, they get up to some serious shenanigans while she's trying to podcast, and it's hilarious. So go check her out. But what we did is she does a lot of like scrappy blankets, and she was looking for an influx of new fibers and colors and dyers to go into her scrappy blankets. And I always think I'm going to do scrappy blankets, and I like hold on to all my scraps back here, but I've never actually cast one on, you guys. I use all my scraps for heels, toes, and cuffs, and once it's below 14 grams, I can't really get a heel and a toe for both pairs of socks out of it. And then it's just kind of chilling there waiting for something fun. Alternatively, I also have all these like half skeins of sock yarn that I've already made a pair of socks out of, but I'm gonna do something with them someday. And I do. I mean, I'll put them together and make garments and stuff out of them. You've seen me do that. But these are, for the most part, from American hand dyers, although there are some European hand dyers mixed in there. So I messaged her on Instagram, and I was like, hey, you know, would you be willing to swap with somebody in the US? Because it's a little bit more shipping. Because I have all these like American hand dyers that I'd be willing to wind off like 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever grams for you. And she was super interested in that. And originally she had said, like, I can either send scraps to you of scraps that like she's already put in multiple blankets, or I could send you some hand spun if you're not a scrappy blanket knitter. And I was like, you know, I'd totally be down for some hand spun because I want to spin, but I don't spin because it's another costly hobby that I refuse to pick up until things are steady with Social Security and things like that. So I wound off and put together a nice little package of yarn mini balls for her with some tea and stitch markers and stuff like that, like you do, and I sent that off. And she sent to me the most gorgeously wrapped package. I will try and insert a picture here if I didn't delete the picture that I have of it. And it was so cute. And it had a cute little card, which she could have no way of knowing how much I love this particular piece of art. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. And it had the tea that I'm drinking today in it. And it had these really cute little wooden buttons that are purple and green, which are of course my favorite colors. So they have a little bit of orange in them too. See if it'll focus. So I have these in there. Gotta love a good wood button. And a little tiny rose. Turn. Oh, it doesn't want to turn. A little tiny rose progress keeper that was also purple. And the most beautiful hand spun, you guys. She said that she picked a couple of lovelies that kind of went together, and boy did she ever. So the bottom one is mostly purples and the top one is purples with a little bit of oranges and greens in there. And you couldn't probably pick colors that are more me. So these are both like a heavy DK light worsted weight at around, one's 200 and one's 240 yards. So I am going to hold on to these sweet babes until I can get some, my brain is just blinking on me, some woolly wool in like a light worsted to go with it, enough to make a sweater, and then use this for the color work in the yoke, because I think these would make an amazing color work yoke. So probably something from Andrea Mowry, or oh shoot, I had another one that I was thinking of. I'll put the name down here if I can think of it. Anyway, so I'll probably try and find like a medium gray to go with these, I think. And yeah, I'm super excited. They're gonna be so gorgeous. So gorgeous. They smell, you guys. They smell like sheep and wool wash. They're so good. So that was my big acquisition. And then I got something in the mail and I was like, what, I didn't order this. Was a little package and it had this sticker, two other stickers with a little peachy kai in it. A big one was a rainbow with peachy kai heart, and a little peachy kai that I put on my, making a mess, that I put on my needle holder right here. And this guy. And it turned out it was for my writing partner, and they had been on Etsy and they had seen the little Bye Froggy. And they were like, oh, that's you. So they got me the stickers and the pin, and it just showed up in my mailbox. And I was like, oh, happy mail. I'm so excited. This is Scratch and Sniff, you guys. And you want to talk about being transported back to the 80s. Give someone a Scratch and Sniff sticker half the size of their phone. Yeah, you just sit there and huff the Trapperkeeper fumes, you guys. You know what I'm talking about. So I want to give a shout out to a couple of the podcasts that I've mentioned in the show, and one that I discovered just a few days ago, which I think if you like me, you will like them. The first being Happy Sheep, Grumpy Llama, and I gotta always make sure that I get that in the right order. These are two Canadian friends who they actually run a little like online shop that sells Briggs & Little wool and other knitting accoutrements. And they are really just fun and laid back and highly caffeinated and cookie. I'm not meaning that in a bad way either. Just like, you know, how you are when you've had your morning coffee and you have your knitting and you're sitting around with your best friend and you're just like, la, 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 la. That is how it is. It's fun and it's relaxing and enjoyable to watch because it's a happy vibe. There's no sad notes. So check them out. They have a podcast, which I will link below. The other is Liz Ward, who has the Yarn Waffle podcast and the Spin to Knit episodes. Both are really super fun. I think the Spin to Knit is fun, even if you're not a spinner. Like, I'm not a spinner. I just wish I was a spinner. Someday I want to be a spinner, and it's really interesting to see her spinning journey. Like, she's only been spinning for a little over a year. And look at the amazing things that she does. So she breaks it down a lot into like what she thinks about when she decides that she's going to spin a yarn so she knows how it'll come out. And that's really interesting information to me. Plus, I just like to see the process of a project become a thing. And again, her cats are freaking hilarious. One is named Puka, one is named Jax, and the third one's name escapes me right this hot moment. But they, you know, they try and trash her house, they try and get in her knitting, you know, they're just bossy. It's funny to me. I love it. Maybe that's just because I've been around Bengals before, but I just find it hilarious. You cannot argue with a Bengal. You will lose. And then the last one is one that I just discovered 2 nights ago because I was watching podcasts on YouTube while knitting, and a thumbnail popped up of somebody who was heavy like me and had a side shave like me, and I thought, oh my god, I gotta try this. And the name of the podcast is Kitty Scrapper. They are a former paper crafter. So like their channel used to be like a scrapbooking and paper crafting channel, and they've like knit for a while and they've always crocheted, and as that fell away they started doing this, and they just decided to start uploading knitting podcasts instead. So they are only on episode 6, I think. They upload about once a month or once every 3 weeks, somewhere in there. Very modern goth, neon colors, lots of crochet, really good at the crochet, really unique and interesting things with crochet, and really irreverent and funny, and doesn't judge themselves, just not offended by life. And it's so nice to see, and I'm so excited to see just another bigger podcaster out there who is not like, who's okay talking about the fact that they're big? You know what I mean? So definitely go, if you like this channel, you will love Kitty Scrapper. Go check her out. So I will drop those links down below. And I think it's time to move into reading. So I've got 2 things for reading. One is fanfic, because I promised that I would dig up some fanfic based on Dracula, because I'm doing the Dracula daily, which, oh my god, you guys, now that I'm hooked on that, my librarian friend has pointed out that there are multiple things like that. There is a Camilla daily or Camilla weekly, whichever. I've signed up for that. It's also an in your inbox, like serialized version of the novel Camilla. There is apparently also a Frankenstein weekly, and that came before Dracula weekly, and I'm gonna have to sign up for that. I think I found a new way of reading it. To be honest with you, like, just send me in bite-sized pieces in my email box and I will read it every morning, like with my coffee. It'll be great. So I did. There is tons and tons and tons of very dark, very like horror, and I mean, it's Dracula, so right? It's like lots of fic that like challenges issues of bodily autonomy and consent and just like all kinds of things like that, right? So I did come up with one that I really liked that was really short. So it's called, and I never know how to pronounce this word. I think it might depend on where you're at. It's either Chimera or Chimera. But I think it's Chimera. By Argyle on An Archive of Our Own. It is based on the 2020 BBC Netflix series. It was originally on BBC and they ported it to Netflix, which I also watched and I also liked because I love Dracula. It is just a horrifically good short fanfic. It is male. It is, I'm not sure if it's rated explicit. It might be rated M. For the sake of safety, I'm going to say it's explicit, right? There is references to penises. But it's one that it's very brief, and like it's not like an in-depth sex scene. It's only 1,000 words long, so like it's a quick little ficlet. It's more body horror. It's more like mental. One of the tags is unreliable narrator, and that really nails it, right? Is this really happening? What is really happening? A little bit of a like mindfuckery like that. And I really liked it. It was very good. So you should definitely check that out if you are reading Dracula daily or just love Dracula and you're like all about Harker and Dracula and how this is probably just a whole lot of subtext for some homosexual getting it on. Outside of the fanfic, I read Braiding Sweetgrass, which is really popular right now. I had a huge wait list, like 26 weeks wait list for me at the library. And I think I was finally down to like 13 weeks, and then boom, it was just ready for me one day. And I was like, oh, that last 13 weeks happened in like 3 days. What the heck? So this is a book written by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she is a plant scientist, basically, and she comes from, I think it's Canadian Native American heritage, and or certainly a Native American heritage that has been displaced out of Canada. Let me put it that way, because with the reservations and the resettlement of Native Americans, just because your ancestors or even your grandparents were from Canada, that doesn't mean that you are from Canada, unfortunately, because they may have been moved a very, very long way from where they're from. So I think her like original ancestry is probably from Canada. And but she lives, it sounds like, on the East Coast. And the book is a lot about walking the bridge back and forth between a Native American way of thinking about nature and a very Western scientific way of thinking about nature. And they are distinctly different. Culturally, they are distinctly different. You know, we tend to think of science as a hard and fast thing, and the Native American way is much more open and broad in their questioning. And so with the Western view, you need to have a single question that is very specific that you can pin down and find an answer to. And in the Native American way, it's much more acceptable to just have a very, very broad question that you want an answer to and use science to find that answer. So her example was, why do these two flowers look so pretty together? And her professors told her, that's not science, that's art. And she's like, but it is science, and it could be science. And in the end, she did find out the answer about scientifically why they look good together, and it has to do with rods and the cones in your eyes and attracting bees who have similar vision, and there is science behind it. And I found it really, really interesting because I would not consider myself to have Native American heritage. I have a very, 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 very small amount, to the point where I would consider it negligible and not something where I would have the right to claim that. And but my grandparents did grow up very close to reservations and in Oklahoma, and they clearly osmosised a lot of that belief, because the way that they raised my parents and the way that I was raised, I was really surprised how much more I was raised with a similar viewpoint to what she was saying she was raised with, versus the viewpoint of what she was saying, like, this is what I see from the outside. And I do see that outside point of view now, but like, we were very much raised with, you only take what you need and you respect what you take, and you should never do something, you know, you should never pull a weed or pick a flower or kill an animal or anything like that just because you can. And you can't justify the reason why you need to do that in order for you to continue on, then why are you doing that? Why does that particular other living being have to die for you? And she was talking about how in a lot of Western culture, you know, other plants or other, you know, things are not, specifically in her case plants because she's a botanist, are not considered like to have a personhood, so to speak. And it just was really interesting. And like, I was raised a meat eater with a large garden, and like we definitely partook of meat and plants and nature, but we were raised with a lot of respect for it. And it was super, super interesting to me how, for one, how she did find answers to questions that other people told her were not scientific questions, but were artistic questions. And she found scientific answers to them. And for two, how much more closely my own upbringing aligned with respecting that than I had expected it to. So it was really an interesting book. I think it probably ties into why I get so into knitting and making my own clothes and, you know, cooking my own food or growing my own garden and things like that than the consumeristic aspect of things, and why those things are important to me. So if you're somebody who is like into the whole like consumerism versus whatever that other thing is, definitely is going to be a book that you would like. So I highly recommend it if you can get your hands on it. Check it out at the local library or whatever. Just be prepared to have a wait list because it's a popular one right now. I know it was also recommended on Andrea Mowry's podcast after it had already been recommended to me and I'd already been on the wait list for like 10 weeks. And I was like, oh yeah, now I know why the wait list is so long. So that's what I've got, you guys. I am probably, honestly, going to go see if I have a cable to cast this on because I want to get started. And if not, I'm going to free one up. And I hope that you get to do something else equally as satisfying. I will see you in 2 or 3 weeks, depending. And I hope that you have a good morning, evening, afternoon, or midnight, depending on where you're at. Please stay safe. The world is super crazy out there.